Well, for those people who are missing, they would definitely like to see it. Okay, so I didn't see anybody's name come up as far as they think they might be coming, but they're not. Kawong is the only person I know of. Tiffany, who should be here, is not yet. Okay, well, I guess we won't need those. Well, I might leave the Caddyshack up for the URL. We might start there. We'll see. I have other places in mind. So who here has used a HUD in Second Life? A heads-up display, HUD, HUD. Cliff, I believe you have a HUD. A HUD for heads-up display for interactivity in Second Life. Anybody else? No? No, I'm not asking you to build one, but have you used one? Okay, never used one. So we'll try that today. That'll be the activity at the very end of the day, at the end of our 3-hour session. So I assume you guys have started planning your 2-hour sessions, and this is the challenge, right? So how do you fill up 2 hours? Well, now think about filling up 3 hours. And actually, you can see that my challenge is to cut it down to a reasonable amount of activities to fit within 3 hours. For me, it's not so much how to fill it up, it's how not to overdo it and get too enthusiastic. All right, well, let's go to sharing and share my desktop. And let's move this first. Share screen on the first monitor. Okie dokie pokies. You should now see the orange Faculty of Education Moodle. Does anybody see that? Yes? Okay, good. All right, well, we'll actually flip over to, it's so amazing how it gets so out of whack. Okay, well, that's what we're going to be looking at today. That's an example of a HUD. Let's make it everything a little bigger. So there is a HUD for the 8th session, and you can see that in the picture you've got a dialogue there. It talks about fire safety, run out of the lab, there's choice 1. Choice 2 is run out of the lab and activate the fire alarm. And choice 3 is continue trying to put out the fire with the fire extinguisher. How many of you have been to this fire safety so far? I'm just trying to remember who have I shown this to? Cliff, you've been there? Kevin, did you get out there? Did you ever come along with me? I can't remember. Yep, the HUD gives us the instructions. So just a quick poll here. What do you guys think? Looking at that picture, oh, does it help if I go full screen? I think. Does that help? No, it doesn't help me because I can't see your picture. What do you guys think of this picture with the fire? Should you keep trying to put out this fire with that little fire extinguisher, the one right in front of my avatar? This one. What do you think? If you were faced with this fire, should you try to keep putting it out? Run, definitely. Run, don't walk, and get out. Well, at least walk quickly, I would say. Try not to knock everybody over and step on their heads. But it's out of hand, yeah. So this is the kind of thing we want to train the lab students in, using a HUD. So this is the first one I've ever built, using a HUD, and first, one of two. Not sure which one I finished first. And the idea is to make it an interactive experience with structured activities. Okay, so everybody's good. Everybody has sound. We're only missing one person. So let's go up to the prior section. This is the 7th session, Contemporary Perspectives in E-Learning Research. And we looked at analytics, right? Learning analytics, and we also reviewed presence pedagogy, reviewed the application of learning theory to e-learning activities, Connolly, axes of learning, her triangle, and some taxonomy of different, basically, verbiage. Is it very difficult to build? There's two routes to go, Cliff. One is completely done in LSL code, which is like C++, and the other one is done using a interface we're just experimenting with, which is easier to use, but it's not as snappy, not as fast, because it's web-based, so it has to go and get the answer and come back, so it's slower to respond. But you'll see them both today, and I would say that including a HUD in a Second Life activity, it's pretty high up the scale. Actually, no, the second choice doesn't involve programming. The first one definitely does, but the second one is more of a web interface. I'm going to open up a window here, guys. Let's take a look. Well, you can see over my shoulder here, we're going to open up this learning analytic discussion about, do you think a learning analytic could help? So you guys had some good things. A lot of you like the class data. I think that's what it was called. Smart class, that's what it was. Smart class. You guys liked the dashboard with smart class. Here's Karen talking about it. Let me open up a window, get a little cooler breeze. There we go. The neighbors are having a barbecue, so I'd closed up the house, but it's getting a little stuffy. So learning analytics, most of you found some application for it, monitoring student activities, keeping track of what they're doing, progress on assignments. I like the way that Smart Class separates individual work from collaborative work, because those are both key perspectives. Quality of discussion should be graded by a teacher. Yeah, you guys, I'm not sure. I'm a big fan, as you know, of tracking participation. I think quality of discussion should definitely be monitored and encouraged, and if you even required. I've come into a discussion area with a group that I thought was just kind of too surface oriented, and said, you guys should look at this, you guys should consider this, and I want you to talk about that. And gotten pretty pushy around the 4th or 5th session where they hadn't really dug into anything. But as far as grading all the discussions, yeah, it's a nice idea, but time-wise, it's a real challenge to be able to do that if you're going to have a lot of activities. So here's a continuous improvement cycle: data gathering, processing, application, sharing. Looks good. Do you guys have any questions about the learning analytics? Anything you guys want to bring up? Vina asked about this learning analytics enriched rubric, and as far as I can tell, it's not installed at HKU on any of the servers I'm aware of. I know it was available as far back as version 2.3, but I haven't seen it, so I think it's a plugin that has not been installed. We have marking guide and rubric, but not this enriched rubric. So looking at the documentation here, this one, it should be a pull-down choice, and it's not on our server. So I don't think it's part of the native code. Systematic use of information, how LA is classified. Well, especially for your choice, Cliff, for language, I think it's a real challenge how you're going to use it. Obviously, you can track participation in a discussion. That's what I've done. Beyond that, I think you put up a pretty good post. What are you, in group 4, Cliff? Trying to remember where I saw that. Social aspect, definitely. I don't remember where I saw that post by you, your proposed one. Oh, here's a nice diagram by Karen, I think. Intelligent data. Learners off-put. That's the first time I've ever seen somebody say off-put. I would say output. I'm not sure why they say off-put there, but normally people output data or input. But here the learners are creating content, typing in posts on social media or whatever. So I would say that's outputting data. Oh, this looks good. Student information system, learning data analysis. It's a little low quality on the resolution, but overall I would say it's pretty good. Interesting, useful categories. Let's take a look at Cliff's down here. This is the one I thought, nice high quality graph as well. Graphic. And lots of interesting ideas. Meta engines, visualization. Obviously my participation map has a visualization component. I don't see much about statistics here. I guess that might be under data mining. No, I don't see anything on stats. Oh, here we go. Statistical analysis on the input methods, okay? And here is Cliff's idea, taking a whole bunch of different learning analytics, trying to feed it into LA. It must be Los Angeles is where he's planning on going now. Language acquisition, but I thought it was interesting that he assumes that we know what language acquisition is LA. Or is it learning analytic? Ah, learning analytic cases. Is that it? Learning analytic or language acquisition? Learning analytic cases and examples. Equella. I've seen Equella demonstrated. I've never heard of MooDog, JPOL. Early warning system. I think I showed you guys one where it's like a traffic light, green, yellow, and red. E2 coach, signals. Maybe that was the one I showed you, signals. And Sherpa I've never heard of. Helping students pick a substitute class. I think you're going down an interesting track. I'm not sure if you can really make use of so many different disparate sources, but at least you've done some research. I think language is a difficult area because it's so unstructured and difficult to really specify exactly, except for at the low grammatical levels. But if you want them to really write, 5-paragraph persuasive essays, I think it's not easy to have a learning analytic for that sort of thing, other than participation. Anybody else have any questions about learning analytics? Anything they want to bring up? Mostly I just wanted you to be aware of them, that they're out there and that they play a role. Oh, we got way too high. There we go. So the second discussion about applying the virtual environment to teaching, presence pedagogy. And then I asked you to go out into the virtual world of Second Life. Still have some time on this, another week. So I want you to post at least one simulation that applies the affordances and beliefs that you selected to enhance learning. So let's take a quick look. I Googled the difference between modeling language learning and modeling of learning science. Yeah, that's a intersection between two domains that I have not seen much yet either. Learning science tends to focus more on STEM subjects, physics, chemistry, things like that. Okay, so Jessica likes the open heart surgery. Scaffolding, yeah. Jessica, virtual hospital. I found a new virtual hospital. I'm not sure where this one is that you've got here. Try to give a little more information about what it is there. And try to put up a little bigger pictures. That one's a little small. Around 900 pixels wide seems to work fairly well. A nursing lecture in Second Life. Yeah, I watched this briefly. So he's an avatar looking at these different screens. I'm not sure if it's much better than watching a PowerPoint, and a PowerPoint would be bigger diagrams. I like when they use a something three-dimensional to get inside, to look from the inside and the outside, and to have more interactivity. He doesn't have much interactivity, at least in the section I saw, with this medical surgery nurse video. To use those affordances of 3D, interactivity, large scale, three-dimensionality, spatial relationships maybe. Captain Gotcha. I'm not sure what this one's posted for. Tiffany put it up. Is Tiffany here yet? Tiffany, are you here? Yep, there she is. Ki Wong. So what was your intention with this Gotchatopia? How does it contribute to the learning of your students? And Jessica, what do you mean really? Tiffany, are you there? I did find another virtual hospital, and it wasn't that impressive. It was a video tour of it, is the one I saw, and it was mostly about the architecture of the hospital. So they didn't really go into what I find useful is simulated use of equipment, simulated interactions with patients, and role plays between the avatars. So you can come in and do nurse-doctor role plays and things like that. And the video I saw was mostly about the beautiful open spaces of the hospital. So yeah, I agree. The contents so far has not been really useful. Even Mercy Medical, the place that makes all the equipment, such as the heart shock one, you know, the defibrillation unit, when you go there, they hardly use it at all. They just kind of have it set up in a room, and it's kind of boring. They don't really have much information about how to use it or demonstrations, or they just make cool equipment, and they don't really know how to put together a useful interaction, a useful role play. Is Tiffany here? Can she hear me? I see her name, Ki Wong. Can you hear me? Tiffany, are you there? Oh, yes, she's typing. So what was your intent with this Second Life Sim Gotchatopia? And you say foster reflective practice, Templar. So this is the one that fosters reflective practice. Enfant terrible. That's what this is about. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a movie marquee, the Gotcha show. The Enfant terrible. It's a French phrase about a terrible baby. Anybody speak French? Your Wi-Fi is very slow. Well, don't worry about video then. Don't worry about a webcam. Can you tell us what you were thinking about with the Gotchatopia, the Templar? Now here, Chelsea has put up a post with my breast examination center, and she's talking about how you could use this, I think, with tobacco affecting lungs. So if these breasts were lungs and you could see inside them, then you could make an interactive display where you could say, you know, if you smoke this many packs a day, then maybe the cancer might look, or your risk of cancer could be shown graphically as a small tumor. And if you smoke 3 packs a day, then your risk of cancer could be shown as large tumors in the lungs. I guess we could show breast cancers here too, as well as a risk of smoking, right, ladies? As well as, I don't know, birth control? I forget the other risk factors. Interaction is possible only when HUD is built. Well, Cliff, interaction between you and the scenery, or between you and the sim, is structured using a HUD, but there's lots of interactivity between the users, between the avatars, that can be built into a scenario. by the teacher setting the scenario, saying this is the task, and then you need to exchange these informations. You need to live out this role and communicate your role to the people around you, interact with them either in a structured or a open-ended, unstructured way, and then perhaps come out to a discussion forum after. But you can do a lot with a role play and a scenario in Second Life. It doesn't all have to be HUD. The problem with HUDs is they're all pretty much one-to-one, right? Individual learning. We can try later doing a HUD as a group in the biochemistry one that I set up, but it tends to get kind of out of hand if people click on things when other people aren't ready to click on things. So we'll try it. But generally HUDs are very interactive between you and the sim individually. But a lot of the affordance is collaborative and role plays in a virtual world, and that is social and doesn't require a HUD. Actually, HUDs are kind of lonely, is what I would say. So if you guys can find some sims as examples, just show me that you've thought about it a little bit, and you show me some examples to share with people in your group. Yeah, facilitating interactions, community, and reflective practice. And reflective practice, I think, can be stimulated by the 3D simulations in a virtual world. But for capturing them, for archiving them, and sharing reflection, I think you need to follow it up with a discussion forum or some kind of work product, collaborative work product. E-portfolio, a wiki, any of those things would work. So who is this? Deborah, and she found my carousel. It's difficult to sit in it, it's true. It's a challenge. That's one of the first things I ever built, so I didn't know much about helping people sit down. And here's a sailboat. She found an interesting place with a lot of animals, which suits her course design about classifying animals. Okay. This one looks pretty good. Yu Yin, Vina, and she found a 3D model of a human brain and the facial nerves, faciocranial nerves. I knew somebody, I knew a girl, maybe Jessica, you can help me out here. She got Bell's palsy, and it happened during a wedding. So she was a flower girl or a bridesmaid. She was a bridesmaid at a wedding, and suddenly during the wedding she started feeling her cheek going numb. She was coming down with Bell's palsy, which is an infection, I believe, of the cranial nerve in your cheek. And so, you know how you line up everybody for pictures after the wedding, right? And all of her pictures, she's smiling with half of her face and the other half looks dead, because she's lost control of the muscles. So half of her face, it's pretty scary looking. And pretty sad for everybody, I guess, including the bride, that she was in all those pictures with half her face, but she couldn't do anything about it. And just maybe the stress of the wedding helped set it off. But cranial nerves and facial nerves play a pretty key role. Yes, very unequal facial expression due to Bell's palsy is what we call it anyways. You probably have a Chinese name. Was there a separate Chinese name for it, Jessica, or do you guys call it Bell's palsy in English? Probably not, would be my guess. But this looks very applicable and pretty well done. So here you see the 3D model of the skull, and also very large, and several different types, one over here and one over here, and then against the wall you have the 2D diagrams, which are usually available for helping to explain something in a static way. Pretty easy to paste those on the wall. Much more difficult to create this 3D model, but we'll look at that briefly today as well, as how the process for creating 3D models. And that is really where the affordances are, for looking at it and maybe seeing something change. You know, you click on this button and then you see what happens when an infection causes paralysis. Yes, a virus infection of the cranial nerves. Learning corners, raise their own questions. Yeah, I think we looked at learning corners briefly in my Caddyshack, those cars. Also the campfires. If you sit at a campfire or in one of those cars, it's a private audio area. So you can have an audio conversation and only inside that car can you hear it. So it gives you privacy from the car next door. Touch the 3 small hubs. What is displayed on the wall will be different. Oh, okay. Well, not as cool as Branch Classroom. Always good to hear. Well, you know, Branch Classroom is nice for a reproduction of a presentation format. But frankly, a presentation format is not much better than in a real classroom, right? Or it doesn't build on the affordances available, 3D affordances. It's just a PowerPoint replicated in a classroom. But it is pretty cool looking. It's a nice looking classroom. I'll go with that. But I think my breast examination center would be more in the line of using the affordances of Second Life. But always nice to hear that somebody appreciates your work. When we talk about the evaluation of SL scene design, evaluation of a design environment, help us understand the design strategy. Try evaluating some active world project. And I don't think I'm going to, oh, you tried evaluating some active world projects. Yeah, we're not going to look at active worlds as part of this class, but we can talk a little bit about that. I have a paper we can look at. And I decided to use one that just came out about a week ago, 2015 paper, and we'll look briefly at that about comparing different affordances for different virtual classrooms. Not so much about evaluation of a Second Life scene design, although I just did for about 5 minutes now, Cliff, talk about, for example, my virtual classroom where you're sitting in seats and looking at a PowerPoint screen compared to exploring and interacting with the breast examination center or using a HUD for biochemistry or a HUD for the fire safety in a lab. And those, I think, make much better use of the affordances of Second Life. Okay, here's Delgarno's paper. Somebody keeps starting a private chat. It gives me a warning every time. Not sure why. And if you guys raise your hand, I found a way to click on it. So if you raise your hand, I should quickly see. So why doesn't somebody try raising a hand? And it should pop up quickly. Or polling you, I can poll you with agree or disagree. Yes, Yu Yin raised her hand. So it pops up a little notice and I can quickly see. So like how many people can hear me okay? It might be easier to do that. Thank you, Chelsea. Or how many people agree? And how many people disagree? Yeah, oh, thank you. Like attendance, right? Raise your hand if you can hear me. And then there's also an agree section and a disagree. So a quick poll, you know, who thinks it's this? How many people agree that it's this way? Like that, you can do that. Just do a quick poll, I guess. Yep, they're agreeing. Excellent. Nobody's disagreeing, I hope. And then stepped away, Vera. And then there's one for stepped away. So if you're away from your desk, you can leave it on a AFK, right? Away from keyboard. All right. Well, anybody have any more questions about the that last discussion forum? Applying the virtual environment to teaching. Okay. All right, well, let's go on to the next session. So design and implementation factors in blended synchronous learning environments. Now, the paper we'll look at actually focuses on a number of different synchronous learning environments. The one we're on now with Adobe Connect is one of the examples that they'll cover in that paper. They also look at things like Moodle and Type Chat. They look at dedicated video systems like Cisco and Polycom, which I've used in the past. And they also discuss Second Life as far as all examples of blended synchronous learning environments. But then they put in another twist. All of these case studies are done where some of the students are in the classroom and some of them are outside the classroom. I've done that maybe 4 times, and it's the most difficult of all, and not to be recommended for the faint-hearted. It's very difficult to ride 2 horses at the same time, like that guy in the movies, right? Who's galloping on, he's standing on 2 horses' backs, right? A lot of those stuntmen died, I'm sure, trying to pull off that stunt. I got seriously hurt because it's easy to lose control, right? Where the distance learners feel left out, or you focus on the distance learners and the people in the classroom feel like they're left out, or getting the audio right for both. It's very difficult. So usually I recommend that people try to do one or the other, not both. So have everybody in the classroom or everybody outside the classroom. It's a lot easier. All right, so Zooming is a problem, but okay, so let's start session 8. I have some resources here, like how do I add a rubric for grading my assignment? You might find that useful. How do I add a marking guide? Creating and managing breakout rooms, what is a HUD? SketchUp, Turbo Squid, and Jacobson's paper about design perspectives for learning in virtual worlds. Cliff, that paper sounds good, like what you're looking for, but it's actually mostly just an overview of this virtual Singapore sim that he studies in the paper. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way up to the top of the course, and I'm going to look at summative assessment task number 1. So this is the final assignment, task number 1, evaluation of an existing e-learning design. Yeah, an environment evaluation model would be very helpful. Well, we looked at Dalgarno's paper. He's got a structure in there that you might consider, but a framework. This paper we look at today might help you, Cliff. I'm trying to remember if it would, but anyways, so once you set up an assignment, you put in the description of the assignment. So this is basically the aims of the assignment. So the overall evaluation of e-learning design or an e-learning PD plan. And then this is taken from the course proposal, the design of a curriculum unit or an e-learning implementation plan. You're supposed to evaluate it with respect to the theories and arguments and perspectives we've discussed in class. And then I showed you last week how I started to set up the actual criteria, but then once I went in and I created the rubric, I realized that the criteria should not be here. They should be down with the rubric. So there's the late policy. Now when you create a rubric using this advanced grading, which I'll go over a bit later, then it creates the rubric, and that's where I copied in my criterion, and I further expanded on them a little bit to make it a little more specific, easier to understand, easier for you to understand what's expected of you. So here is the criterion. Generate an evaluation of a specific design or PD plan. So that's worth 80 points, and then I break it down into 3 parts. List and describe the TLAs which are effective for achieving the ILOs and which TLAs are not. Explain and justify, 20 points. List and describe the assessment tasks of this design or plan. Are they effective for evaluating student achievement of the ILOs? Explain and justify your opinion. And finally, construct logical and coherent arguments. So the verb is argue, which relate learning science theory, pedagogical perspectives, and research to the teaching practice in this existing e-learning design or plan. That's worth 40 points. So those 3 elements together make up the overall evaluation of a design or plan. And then analyze and critically reflect on issues that impact on the implementation of IT used in this specific educational context. That's 20%. So this is basically taking the aims from the course proposal and hard coding it, if you will, into very specific, observable, accessible behaviors. And then when you create the rubric, which we'll go over later, it looks like this. There's one about TLAs, 20 points. Assessment tasks, 20 points. Arguments and perspectives, 40 points. Analysis and reflection on IT, 20 points. And notice that I'm applying the solo taxonomy: pre-structural, unistructural, multistructural, relational, and extended abstract. So by now you should have a pretty good idea of what that means. Pre-structural, the guy had no clue, this student had no idea how to make a TLA or how to evaluate the TLAs. So that's the task here: list and describe, explain and justify, and they just didn't get the point. They get pre-structural. Unistructural, you get one factor, you have one idea. Multistructural, you get several things, several elements laid out, but you're not really drawing conclusions. Relational, you can draw a conclusion, you can get the big picture about this particular criterion. And extended abstract, you've gone beyond the requirements of the of that particular element. You're applying it to new contexts or into your past or into your future design, things like that. So that's the solo taxonomy applied to each of these criterion. And these are just little reminders for me that which one they tie up to. So 4 criterion: 20, 20, 40, and 20. And when it comes time to grade, I'll be looking at your work, and then I'll be clicking through here and just picking one. And I just tick on it, and I'll say, okay, I'll give them 15 points on that, 20 on that, 30 on that, and 20 on that. And the beauty of it, which is not to be underestimated, is that Moodle will add these up, because it's a common error for teachers. They're under stress, they're thinking about higher order thinking, right? And they can't add 15, 20, 30, and 20. They make a mistake, and somebody gets a B instead of an A. And you know, much to everyone's dismay, that does happen. So Moodle adds them up for you, and you avoid any kind of arithmetic errors. And we'll go over that briefly. But if you, when you create your own assignments, you should have criterion. And normally those criterion are here in the description area of the assignment. But if you do make a rubric or a marking guide, I recommend that you move the criterion to the description of the rubric, since it's more directly, closely related to it. Now, can everybody see that? Can someone, I'm not talking about see it on your screen now, I'm talking about, can you open it up in the Moodle course the way I did, and tell me if you can also see this grading criteria above the rubric? I hope so. Can somebody try that and tell me? How about reflect on the ICT implementation? Not sure what could be included. So you're talking about this number 2 right here. Is that right, Vina? Analyze and critically reflect on issues that impact on the implementation of IT. So let's say you're looking at something you did in your undergraduate at CityU. And the way they used Moodle was good, but the system kept crashing. That would be an IT problem. So you could talk about how that affected your learning. They tried to use webcams like we're doing right now, but not enough bandwidth, and the sound kept dropping out, or the teacher would be distracted by his children. Yeah, that's not really an IT issue there. Bandwidth, computer crashing, audio problems, things like that. IT, ICT, basically the same thing. We're talking about hardware, software, bandwidth, infrastructure, all those things. How does it impact on the implementation of the of that educational context? So good. Karen says, I can find the rubric in the table of submission status. And can you see these this grading criteria? Can you see this section, Karen? Yes, Yu-Yin, it's more like technical problems. Not necessarily all problems either. You can talk about good things. How was the IT used well? In what ways did the hardware and software successfully support the learning of this in this particular educational context? So the first section here is all about the TLAs, the assessment tasks, and then relating them to theory and perspectives. Well, the second part is much more about how did IT support or not support what they're trying to do. How about talking with ePortfolio as assessment can be considered as PD? Sure, definitely. That's the way Biggs described it, because all of his students were practicing teachers. So I'd say that is the difference, is are these people working? Are they full-time students with no jobs? Then it's not PD. But if they're working teachers that are coming back to university and taking a course so that they can be better teachers, then it's PD. Actually kind of a blurry line, right, between people who want to be teachers and people who are teachers. The other one I've seen is that when people say, well, this is a GE course, so it should not be professional development, it should just be theories and perspectives, academic stuff. While I personally think that most students, even undergraduates, would like to have some professional development so that they have some marketable skills when they graduate, as well as the theory, right? You need to have it hand in hand. But all pedagogy and no practice is not as good as having both, and all practice and no pedagogy obviously is just being a technician, so you don't want that. Good. Karen can find that task description. Good. Thank you for checking, Karen. Appreciate it. I was pretty sure that you could, but I wanted to verify that while I have you guys here with somebody so helpful to take a look. All right. Good question, Vina. And good question, Jessica, about the ePortfolio. Any other questions about assignment 1, which frankly is easier. It's the easier of the two tasks. And I'm going to give you a homework assignment to help you get started on this assignment number 1. Someplace where you can give each other feedback and ideas, and I can come in and try to correct any obvious problems before you get your final grade. Now, when you do it, when I say I'm going to give you homework, it doesn't mean I'm going to look at your final product and give you a thumbs up, right? Like you're definitely going to get an A, but I'm not going to do that. But I will give you feedback. If you post as you develop, then I'll be happy to give you feedback as well as your group mates. Anybody else have any questions before we move on? And don't feel too scared, right? This should be pretty straightforward for most of you by now. I think most of you will do well on this. This is fairly direct, fairly straightforward. You'll need to do a little research to do this part 3 here, to make sure that you have your learning sciences theory, perspectives, and maybe some mention of research, and how you relate it to the this design or plan. Okay? All right, well, if there's no question, we'll move on. Sound still good? Everybody with me? Yeah, no worries. Don't be so scared, Chelsea. You'll be fine. Okay, can you hear me? When you look at those kind of criterion, it sounds hard because there's looks like a lot of things to do, but it actually is a lot easier. For, let's say, for a B student, it's a lot easier to look at those and get specific direction on what to do. A students can create an A project even with just the aims, but it's very difficult for a B student to hope to get an A without very clear criteria. Can somebody say something or raise a hand so I know you can still hear me? Is my audio still working? Just nod if you can hear me. Thank you, Karen. So helpful. Jessica, great. All right, let's take a look at Summative Assessment Task 2. Develop a lesson plan for an e-learning unit with designed appropriate activities. So again, there's your overall title and the aims from the course proposal. So it's kind of English-like, it's quite high-level description, not a lot of specifics. Clearly presenting and discussing learning theories. Include accessible ILOs, clear instructions for all activities with or without technology, that would be TLAs, and any additional materials needed for the lesson. That might be a learning object, that might be a sim, either a real sim in the 3D world or just a hypothetical one. You could include a link, but actually probably just pictures would be fine, and talk about how you would use it, how you would incorporate that into your lesson. Discussions, you need to have good discussion questions. Don't just put up a discussion forum and say students will discuss here. You won't get any points for that. You need to put up good topic questions, and hopefully start out with easy ones and move to harder ones, or at least make it clear. And here's a tip: use the verbs from the ILOs in your questions, so that it's very clear that the ILOs will be met by this discussion forum, because you're asking them to describe and explain, or analyze and relate, or hypothesize and reflect, things like that. Put those verbs in your discussion topic questions and bold them. Make Brandt's job easier. Okay, so anyways, there's the aim. 1,000 to 1,500 words plus screenshots and descriptions. And I expect your descriptions may total up to another 1,000 words or so. Now, this is not going to be really difficult, you know, like writing a paper part. Writing the paper part is more up here, where you're developing your lesson plan. The descriptions are just, you know, talking about what the TLA is, what you're asking the students to do here, things like that. And you can probably cut and paste some of this into your Moodle course, or from your Moodle course back here into the Word document that you're going to turn in for the assignment. That should be pretty much, it should be parallel, right? The description in your TLAs or assessment tasks on the Moodle course should be present here as descriptions of these e-learning activities. Does that make sense? Okay, well, while you guys are typing, I'll scroll down here. Oh, don't forget this note here about it could be the introductory unit, it could be a middle unit or a final unit for summative assessment tasks. If you do an introductory unit, be sure you develop your learning community and your groups. Introduce yourself, form groups, use a choice, use a group choice, things like that. A middle unit, need to focus on formative learning activities. Maybe assess participation automatically, maybe definitely collaborate, right? It's got to be collaborative if you're going to use social constructivism or situative. Have some authentic learning, some experiences that are real-world problems or projects for them to work on. And then you come down to the rubric. Okay, Moodle is very much text-based. Is it okay if I use Moodle as a supporting LMS while I use other authoring software like Adobe Captivate to structure the activities? Yeah, sure. Definitely. That's the way I use Moodle, is a launch platform, right? That's where the links are to launch out to Adobe Connect, to launch to Second Life, with specific locations in the slurls. Discussion forums obviously are built into Moodle, but yeah, Cliff, definitely you can use it. You can use other things like Adobe Captivate to structure your activities. So 1,000 to 1,500 words include the description, an extra 1,000 words. Is that, it's Karen. So yes, an extra 1,000 words. So the lesson plan description should be 1,000 to 1,500 words. And by that I mean the overall lesson plan, and I'll get down into the details. And then the extra 1,000 words should be descriptions of your TLAs and descriptions of your assessment tasks. And as I said, those can be copied from the Moodle course or copy out to the Moodle course for your students to look at. So, and then use screenshots. If you're going to talk about your discussion forum, you might want to make a screenshot of the discussion forum. Maybe no big deal. Maybe just show the topic questions and then talk about why you wrote it this way, because it's social constructivism or because situated learning and you're going to do it in small groups, or these, look at how this is an authentic problem, you know, things like that. So this 1,000 words should be kind of pieced out for each different activity, TLA, or assessment task. And this 1,500 words should be pretty much one document, your lesson plan. Can we integrate the ILO, ATs, and TLAs into the lesson plan? Well, you can try a race model. I'd like to see how you do that. Yes, you can build those in. Sure. Yeah, that's fine. You could use appendices for TLAs and ATs, or you could incorporate them into the one long Word document around 2,000, 2,500 words with pictures built in. Sure. Tell me the story of your lesson plan. But keep in mind you've got two things going here. One is this Word document you're turning into me, and the other one is the Moodle course. Either one lesson unit, or you can take over a whole course. For those students who joined later, Deborah's idea was, can we have an entire Moodle course? So I checked, and sure, they can do that. I've always done it with my 6311 courses, and I asked Murphy, and he said no problem on Monday. He'll set up 12 separate courses. So you're only responsible for one unit. But this lets you control the theme for the course. It lets you, set up other factors that might affect the look and feel without affecting other students. So you'll each have your own course, and he'll copy them over and then delete everything except your unit. So the work you've done already will be there, but now you'll have your own course area to develop instead of coexisting with your classmates. So you need to put the TLAs in Moodle, definitely. Definitely, Jessica. I want to see that you can actually create an assignment. I want to see you try to make a rubric. I want to see you try to make a discussion forum, a wiki. I don't really recommend Moodle wikis. If you can make a shared Google document, that's a big plus. I'll test it. I'll click on it. I'll see if it opens up to a shared Google slide. Things like that. I want to see you implement, not just talk about it in theory. So again, we talked about pedagogy and practice. So for this assignment, you've got the pedagogy of this lesson plan, and you have the practice of the Moodle course. Talk about the theory, implement the theory. So the descriptions of TLAs and extra 1,000 words, put it into Moodle. Yes, that's right, Tiffany. Extra 1,000 words because, when you write your description of your forum, you need to tell the students what to do. You need to tell them how they can earn points, and you need to tell them maybe a distribution of points. And those will make up, a couple 100 words maybe for each assignment, each TLA, something like that. Just kind of ballparking, but there's usually some verbiage with each activity. And when those all add up, I expect them to be around 1,000 words or so. Don't want you to go much beyond that. So 2,500 words roughly total. Okay, so let's look down here at the rubric. So I've already shown it to you last week, and I've, as I said, worked it out a little more specifically now. So identify and describe a primary e-learning model or strategy for your lesson plan. So you're picking one of the main strategies or models: social constructivism, situated learning, activity theory, experiential learning, things like that. 10 points. Generate a design of a specific lesson plan for 2 hours of face-to-face or online contact time, and set up the activities on the Moodle practice course provided. And we'll work this out so you'll each have your own, and I'll make that clear. And then create the lesson plan ILOs and activities. So that's worth 20 points. The first one, create your ILOs. And I fleshed that out a little bit. Create clearly accessible ILOs based on observable behaviors. I recommend solo verbs. If you want to try some Bloom's verbs, that's fine. Make sure that they are observable and accessible, not just understand. Number 2, create and describe engaging and collaborative TLAs and explain how they will train your students to achieve the ILOs. 5 points. Create and describe assessment tasks. Explain how the criteria will accurately support/evaluate their progress towards ILOs. So if they're formative, they support progress. If they're summative, they evaluate progress. Number 4, identify if the assessment tasks are formative, supporting their learning, or summative, evaluating their learning, and justify why. So pretty straightforward there, formative or summative. Any questions so far? All right. Part 4. Generate a logical and coherent constructive alignment diagram. Now you guys have all worked on this. You've probably gotten a lot of feedback on it. Hopefully your CAD is pretty much ready to go, or at least you know how to make one. 20 points. Construct logical and coherent arguments which relate learning sciences theory, perspectives, and research to teaching practice evidence in each activity in your lesson. Identify where other e-learning perspectives influence your design, explain why you chose them, and justify their application. So perhaps you use a bit of instructivist perspective, right? When you're just transmitting in a lecture, you're just asking the students to be quiet, focus on you, and you talk with transmission teaching. You could call it reproductive learning, right? Where they just reproduce what you've done, what you've taught them. But you need to talk about that. Explain to me why you want to lecture. And then if you're going to do a discussion, well, that may be a different perspective than your primary one at the top. So that you have a primary model or strategy, and then you might use some other elements for different activities. Generally, you'll have a range of things. You might do some experiential learning. Ask the students to go into some real world, or at least a semi-real world situation. Things like that. Finally, analyze and critically reflect on how your lesson plan improves on the issues and shortcomings of the design you evaluated in assignment number 1. So I made that a little more specific now. I want you to compare it to assignment number 1. It doesn't have to be like an exact version of, but better. It just, if you had problems with IT, or you had problems with the design, let's focus on the design. You had some issues or some shortcomings you criticized in assignment 1. Tell me how your plan in assignment 2 is going to be better. So I think that's something you should be pretty well aware of. You wrote up assignment 1 based on something you're aware of in your own experience or something you got off the web. Make sure you do your own work. And now you're going to tell me how your lesson plan will do a better job addressing those specific issues and shortcomings from assignment number 1. Does that make sense? 20 points. It's a pretty key element there. And there's the rubric. Your primary e-learning model or strategy, your lesson plan and Moodle activities, ILOs, GLAs, ATs, formative or summative, CAD design, arguments and perspectives, and analysis and reflection. So the rubric just makes it easier for me to capture what I'm how I'm scoring your work, and it's easier for you to look at it and get a quick overview without me typing a lot of the same things over and over to students. You know, I like this, but you're a little short here, or you did this well, but you're only multi-structural because of this, this, and this. And when I do this, when I put in this rubric, I can give comments on each criterion if I want to, and I often do. I often give a lot of feedback. But then you don't get it for like 2 months while you wait for your grades, so I feel kind of bad about that. But that's the rules of the MITE, is we're not allowed to give any grades out until they're approved by the examiners. Can we use assessing an open course platform such as a MOOC as the topic for assignment number 1? Yes, you can. That would be fine. I think it would be easier for you if you had actually taken the MOOC, but you don't have to. You know, you could hypothetically imagine what it would be like to take the MOOC. But as I said, it's easier if you've done it yourself. That's why I recommend that you analyze something from your own educational past. Jessica? E-learning defined, ICT in education, for example, multimedia. Yeah, any use of technology in education. I definitely want to see collaboration. Are you talking about assignment 1? Sure. It could be any use of technology to support education. ICT in education, multimedia. Really depends on what you want to select, how far down the food group you're talking about, how low of a course. So this teacher only used chalk on a blackboard and he couldn't speak and he only had one arm. Or you could talk about an experience where they used Moodle, but they didn't do a very good job of using Moodle. They didn't use all the abilities. Or you could talk about, well, anything you like. Yes, using ICT in education. It'd be nice if my second screen was above the first screen so I could look more at you guys and read your typed text. Jessica's thinking of the advantages of DST. What's DST? In demonstrating competence. Digital storytelling, okay. Sure, that's fine. Usually, a lot of DST is dependent on the student's ability, their technical abilities to use something, use some tools. So you might have a great storyteller, but they cannot use a computer to save their life. Or you can have somebody who's really good on a computer, but they're boring. So that's the challenge, is try to find somebody who's good on a computer and they're interesting and creative. It's surprisingly rare, even in today's society. Okay, there's the rubric. Alrighty, any other questions? All right then. After we take a break, I'm going to show you how to create a rubric. I'm going to walk you through it, but before we do that, I want you to get started on, well, before we do that, let's take a quick look at the poll. Here's the news. The poll that you guys took, and I assume most of you saw the results right after it, but this is that quick little poll about is these technologies useful in supporting your learning? Moodle, strongly agree and agree. So 10 out of 11 students are either in agreeing or strongly agreeing. Adobe Connect, 10 again, students like Adobe Connect. Obviously, there's a step down here from Moodle. It's only, most of you are just agreeing. Second Life, agree or neutral. So it's still fairly positive, but Second Life, not convinced yet. And frankly, you know, we haven't really gone into all the abilities of Second Life as we have with Moodle and Adobe Connect. And last, what is your preference for the 8th and final class session? And 7 of you chose either Adobe Connect, Second Life, or a combination of the two, and 4 of you chose face-to-face. So that's why we're here using distance learning today. So that's a quick overview of results on the poll. And that's done using a feedback activity in Moodle as opposed to a questionnaire. The feedback has become a little more native, a little more updated in Moodle, but there's still some advantages of the old questionnaire format. Glossary. 3 of you have 4 definitions, so 3 students in here have earned 4 homework points. So I decided we're here at the last session, I'll make that 100%. So it used to be, I was asking you to define 8 terms, and it was up to 8 homework points. But I decided that 4 is enough, and it'll make that target easier for those of you who only have 1 or 2 done so far. So if you only have 1 or 2 done, get busy. Check your grade right now. From the course view, check your grade, yeah? And take a look and see how many points do you have on that activity. And the goal is to get 100%. So each student should try to define 4 terms. If you already have 4 done, good job. You're finished on that activity. If you only have 1 or 2, then there's room for improvement. Pretty easy to do. And frankly, I should have pushed you earlier, around the middle of the term. But, you know, like we looked at last week with the discussions and how there's huge holes in class activity levels over the holidays. Chinese New Year, and then the reading week. But there's really big slams, depressing classroom activity, online blended learning activity. And that makes it difficult to keep the ball rolling. Okay, any questions about the poll or the glossary? Okay. All right, then let's take a look at the discussion forum. Evaluation of a prior e-learning design. So just quickly looking back, this is assessment task 1, right? That's assessment task 1. List and describe, TLAs and assessment tasks. And here is a discussion forum. Boy. Every time I change the zoom level, it jumps around right there. Evaluation of a prior e-learning design. Describe a prior e-learning context. Describe the TLAs. Explain why they were effective. Number 3, describe the ATs and explain why they were effective. Can you relate some learning science theory, perspectives, and research to the teaching practice? So obviously this homework is designed to help you get started as a formative activity to support assignment number 1. Now a lot of our work over the last 5 or 6 sessions have supported assignment number 2, which is definitely the most challenging. Assessment task number 1, assignment 1, this is the formative support. So the more work you put into this, the more feedback you give to your group mates, and I'll try to give you some feedback as well, the better you'll do on assignment number 1. So, any questions about this discussion forum? And you go ahead and set up your group areas, and you've got 2 weeks to work on this. Vera? Can we have a break to reflect on the instruction about the assignment? Yes, definitely. I plan on giving you a break. I'd like you to put up the group areas and think about your prior e-learning design. This doesn't have to be the same one you use on your final assignment, but probably a good idea if it is. Okay, any questions? Otherwise, I'll turn you loose for, what, 10 minutes? $15? How tired are you? How depressed are you? Multiple attendees. Jessica says 10 minutes. Thanks. Lots of work to do. Yes, lots of work to do, but hopefully this formative activity will help you, and hopefully those very clear criterion on assignment 1 and 2 will help you. You'll know what to do. You can move around the elements, but make sure you cover all those elements. The organization is up to you. All right. Well, go ahead and put up your group areas on this discussion forum, and we'll check back here at 3:55. So 10-minute break. Okay. Alrighty. So I'll come back online in 10 minutes. Testing 1, 2. Hey, Cliff. Group 4 and 3. Cliff, can you make a group area for your group? Thanks. Okay, well, it's about 3:58. Do you know where your kids are? I don't know why they used to say that on the radio or the TV. It's 7 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? American TV. Back when I was a kid. Karen? Is that a comfy couch you're on? Vina? You look relatively happy. It's good to see somebody smiling while we talk about final assignments. And Vera? Good. What makes you happy, Vina? Why are you happy to have this class? Because you don't have to go all the way to the campus? Or what? Lots of new concepts? Hopefully some usable skills? Something you can use in the future, I hope? Applicable? Good. Yep, good for lesson planning. Should be. Some structure to your lesson plan, a CAD, right? I think if you want to get a job as a teacher or a corporate trainer and you can make a CAD, a constructive alignment diagram, and explain why this will make the assessment more accurate and make the students more engaged, and talk about something like backwash from assessment, then that would help you get a job. Get a check from Vina. Okay, good. Alrighty, is everybody back? I see 6 webcams. Is Kevin there? And your phone too? I don't see Tiffany online anymore. Seven participants. Can you guys see it when I scroll up and down on the chat, on the participant list? Can you see it move or no? Does it move for you as well? I'm moving a participant list up and down. No movement for you? Or you can see that, no move. Yeah, I figured not. How about if I make it longer? Is it longer now for you? Yes. Okay, so if I change the arrangement of the... Yep, and then I click on that so I can see who's has any questions, raised hands. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have the recordings of the last session and this session available probably on Monday or Tuesday, we're hoping. I've done them in the past, but I've had to capture the whole thing myself and then put it up on YouTube. I'm hoping that it'll be more efficient if the technicians handle it on their end because they're sitting right on the server. But we'll see. It's frankly not much different. It takes 3 hours to create a 3-hour recording to recapture it into a, what do they call it, an offline available recording. It takes 3 hours to make a offline recording of a 3-hour original recording. So not much more efficient really than me doing it myself. Okay, so everybody got a group area up? Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, good. Appreciate that. So I highly recommend that you work on this discussion forum as if you were getting ready to do assignment number 1. That's the way I would look at it. And cherish the feedback you get from your group mates. And I'll try to come in where possible and give some information, some feedback. But as I said, when you've finished, you know, at the end of this, don't ask me what will my grade be on assignment 1. Don't ask me, is this perfect? Have I made any mistakes at all, Mr. K or Brand? My students used to call me Mr. K, but then they were 16 a long time ago. They're all about your age now, those international school students. They've all grown up. People getting married, right? I've seen some of my students marry each other. Brought a tear to my eye. Okay. So let's, can you see my screen okay? Let's jump over to this planning area. Okay, good. And turn on editing. And we'll walk briefly through the process of making an assignment. It's not so good for sharing on a projector because it's just too skinny. Oh, there we go. That's better. I'd like it to be wider yet. There we go. That's about as wide as I can make it. How's that look? Nice and big? Okay, good. So add an activity. I'll start with a new assignment, although I've already got an example there. So we're just going to select assignment. It looks so huge. And add. Whoa. So I'm sure that this is a mobile-friendly theme, but perhaps it's not so useful for going on a projector or sharing it as part of Adobe Connect. Okay, so this is adding a new assignment, and I'll do this as an example of assignment with rubric. And this will be a description assignment, and we've got things like the aims, and you might put in criteria here, right? In a normal assignment you would probably put the criteria here and the grade distribution, how the points, mark distribution, marking distribution, something like that. But these latter two I'm going to put on my rubric. So you might create them here originally, but then when you make a rubric, I found it more useful to move them to the rubric. So I'll just leave the aims there. Probably don't want to have a description on the course page because it's too much. Dates, no big deal. File submission is the default is 1 files being submitted, 10 megabytes, that's fine. In reality, I think I set yours to 50 or something, just in case you include a heck of a lot of pictures and you include PNG files, right? And it gets bloated, a bloated Word document. But 10 or 20 is probably better, probably enough. Feedback types. No need, none of these, I don't think you need to make any changes. Do you want to be notified? Probably not. How many points? 100 points is fine. Now you can set it right here under grade. You can set it, change it from simple direct to marking guide or a rubric. Now a rubric is, as I showed you, you have all the criterion and you have the levels. While a marking guide, you have the criterion, but there's really no levels. You just say must do this, and that's in the criterion. Must have 3 of these. And then the next criterion is must show me 7 of these, right? And then you might give them a grade based on how many did they show you and the quality of what they showed you. But in a marking guide, there's no clear levels. Rubric is more advanced, more two-dimensional in that. So I'll go ahead and select it now. You can change it later. But let's go ahead and put a rubric here. Grade category, if you set up your grade book with categories, but don't worry about that. It's not a requirement for this course. And that's pretty much it. Save and display. Okay, so it says the advanced grading form is not ready at the moment. Simple grading method will be used until the form has a valid status. So we could look for templates, but I don't think there are any. We're going to define a new grading form from scratch. There's a good word, kind of a slang word probably, scratch, from the beginning. So click on that, and we'll call this rubric for example assignment. And now we're going to put in the criteria and the marking distribution. So the criteria come from your ILOs, right? Your ILOs talked about describe and explain. Maybe they start out even lower. Identify and list, analyze and relate, hypothesize and reflect. Those were your ILOs. And now you're going to make an assessment task, and we're just going to focus on maybe one of those. We're just going to do analyze and relate. So for this particular assessment task, we're going to analyze and relate. So put that in there. You should analyze these interesting things we've talked about, class, and relate them to your own educational experience. Should you bold them? Yes. Using Control B, or you can use that button. And you could talk about this is worth 50%, and this is worth 50%. Or you could say the whole thing is this assignment is worth 100 points, and then you could make it 50 points and 50 points. Yeah, pretty straightforward, right? Now we have our 2 criterion, and we need to set it up here. So click to edit, and this one is going to be analyze those things. And the next one is going to be relate them to your past. Okay, and now I'm going to click a level, and I'm going to make it pre-structural. Or you don't have to use a solo taxonomy. You can use any kind of levels you like they did a unsatisfactory factory level, just unsatisfactory. And then the next one could be slightly unsatisfactory, and then satisfactory, and then good, and then excellent, right? I'm using the solo taxonomy because it stores more information than just an evaluation. It implies things like conclusions, or the ability to have facts but no conclusion, or the extended abstract going outside of the normal teaching context of what I've taught you and applying it to other contexts. So I'll go ahead and use that. Pre-structural. And that's worth, well, let's not worry about points yet. So unistructural. Actually, these are normally one word, but I think it helps to hyphenate just to make it easier to read. Add a level. And yep. Okay. So let's make this one 50 points, 40 points, 30 points, 20, 10 or something like that. I wouldn't even give them 10 probably. Nothing. Or maybe they just made a try, and I'll give them some credit for trying. It helps if they're divisible by 5s, right? Because we have 5 levels. And a quick way to bring these down, Control A, Control C, Control A, Control C, and then paste. Control A, Control C. Boy, let's try a little smaller zoom level here. Can't see my button. Okay. Yeah, okay. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. Okay, and you could add more criterion if you need to. It's not scrolling left and right very well at this large zoom level, but you get the idea. There's my 2 criterion, each worth part of the credit for the assignment. There's my 2 criterion, analyze and relate, and the levels. Pretty easy to add more levels, add more criterion. They don't have to match up, right? Some can be 4 levels or 5 levels, and other criterion might only have 1 or 2 levels. And don't worry about it. Moodle will do all the math and make it come out of 100 points. So that's the best advantage, especially for social studies teachers who are math challenged. This might be a great way for them to get all the points right, not worry about adding and subtracting and dividing and etc. I don't normally change any of these rubric options. You can change them for ascending by a number of points or descending. Allow users to preview the rubric used in the Moodle. That's why you could see it as a student. Display the description during evaluation, being graded, points for each level. Allow grader to add text remarks for each criterion. So to the right of each criterion, you can add a comment. So the reason you only got this score was because of this on this particular criterion. And then at the bottom, you have overall feedback for the whole assignment. Okay, so it's pretty easy to do. Any questions? Making a rubric. Criteria, marking distribution. Use solo verbs. At least use verbs that can definitely be observed. Okay, so save rubric and make it ready. Save as a draft. I'm not sure exactly what that would do, but let's make it ready. Make it so, as Captain Picard used to say. Okay, so we are looking at the rubric we just created with the description of aims, and let's go back to the it's a little jumpy there. Yep, Brandt's demo area. Is it going? Okay. So there is the assignment I made. Let's turn off editing. It'll make it a little easier to see. Example of assignment with rubric. And I'm not sure why we don't see that assignment. We just see the rubric. Oh, aims right there. What should show me the rubric underneath? Not sure why it's not. Don't you love it when a demo doesn't work exactly like you expect? Well, trust me, we made one, and there's advanced grading. And there's the rubric. Rubric for the example, criterion, marking distribution, and it rolls over, right? When you actually grade using this, it has a green rollover. And when you click it, it stores it. And then later, if you go back and change somebody's grade, it'll show what it used to be and what it is now. It's a nice tool. It helps the student quickly see why they got graded the way they did. And it helps the teacher break it down into the different criteria and the different levels very clearly and communicate that to the students. So generally, rubrics good. Okay, and I see Jessica is putting in a QuickTime video. Should I activate QuickTime? Oh yes. What's that called, Jessica? This little talky thing. You can hear the synthetic voice. Welcome to Jessica's class. Be nice if she was a nurse. These points can be assigned to assignment handed in Word format or any format. Right, any file that can be uploaded can be graded, basically. Anything the teacher could view. Now that's the challenge sometimes. Can the teacher open it? But generally anything. Microsoft Office, no problem. FLV file, maybe. HTML files, I would not upload an HTML file. It's possible, I think. But I expect all of you to upload either a Word doc or a PDF. Now, in general, PDFs are clean and open up very straightforward, and you don't have to worry about any kind of version issues, and they cannot be edited. So anytime you put up something for other people to look at, if you don't want them to edit it, give them a PDF. Uploading something to your teacher, either way, a doc or a PDF. Feedback will be sent to users in separate file or attached to the assignment. It is sent in. It is attached to the assignment, which means I have no way to show you the feedback without showing you your grade. Now I grade these things in April, end of April, and you will not get your grade and with the feedback until June, I think. So it's kind of sad that you can't see the feedback earlier. But they don't want you to see the grade until it's been approved by the examiner's meeting. So I don't know of a way to separate the two from each other and have the grade be saved and hidden until later and let you see the feedback. But I normally do give a lot of comments. As I mark your work, I just take notes and then I put down all my notes into the feedback, and it's often a page or so for each assignment. Any other questions? Okay, so right now you've got one little unit, and we're going to make a whole course for each of you. As I said, I've done that with my 6311 class since 2010. So since Deborah asked for it, I think it's a good idea. We'll go ahead and do that. You're only required to create one unit, one 2-hour unit. But we'll give you the whole course just so you can play with the theme and set it up just the way you like it, so you don't interfere with each other, perhaps. Okay, any other questions about the assignment with a rubric or the final assignments? Okay, well, I'm going to open up this paper by Bauer. It's Design and Implementation Factors in Blended Synchronous Learning Environments, Outcomes from a Cross-Case Analysis. So I believe that's 7 different cases of blended synchronous learning environments. Yes, 7 in university higher education. They revealed design and implementation factors, so this might apply to you. Cliff, students reported more active learning, enhanced co-presence, greater flexibility. Majority of students felt they learned the same or more than in normal classes, and issues like tool performance, increased cognitive load, and equity between cohorts were issues that came up. So I'm going to open that up. So it opens up as an HTML file. You can also open up a PDF if you like. But I'm going to go through this and talk about it as an HTML file. So Matt Bauer, Barney Delgarno, Gregor Kennedy, Mark Lee, Jackie Kennedy, Jackie Kenny, close. So abstract, talking about video conferencing, web conferencing, and virtual worlds. All these were taught synchronously. They still have asynchronous elements like discussions. So they're talking about setting up environments where you have some students are on campus at the classroom, in the classroom, and some are learning at a distance. Nope, too close. And the advantage of supporting students who want to stay home sometime. They don't always have to come to class, but they want that face-to-face interaction and socialization. So blended synchronous learning approaches have the potential to answer these calls. So they're defining blended synchronous learning as where remote students participate via video conferencing, web conferencing, or virtual worlds. So all of these examples, they have some students online, distance education, and some of them in the classroom. So they do some lit review, greater educational access, multi-access learning. So the conventional wisdom, what most people think, is that students prefer in-person, face-to-face interaction to online communication as much as possible, where their life allows them to do so. But some researchers have noticed that students who have the choice of attending face-to-face or distantly, remotely, opt for the latter. Just like in this class, 7 out of 11 opted for distance education. And here's a reference to Butts, Stupnitsky, Peterson, and Majerus, and their study of master's level students. Convenience as a reason for preferring remote participation. So a quick poll. Why did you want to stay home? The 7 of you who voted for staying home or not coming to class, what was the reason? Was it convenience? What would you say? If you type it quickly, you know, just one word, a few words, what would you say? Why did you vote for distance education, Adobe Connect, Second Life? Students who have a demanding life outside their studies. Save time and travel, right? Could be 2 hours, right? 1 hour there, 1 hour back. Convenience, same thing basically. I kind of like it in some ways. It's you're face to face, and there's no back row and front row. Everybody's equal. There's no loud student and quiet student. Everybody's equal. Obviously, it helps if you can type. Extra benefit, lectures are recorded for later review. Students like to have the choice of in-person or live online, but they're both live, right? They're both, it's not a MOOC where you're individually studying. You're synchronously face-to-face with your cohort and your teacher. Difficult for doing the distance learning in large class? Yes, it would be. It'd be much more of an emphasis on group activities, Jessica, if it was 120 students. But I'd like to give it a go. Obviously, I wouldn't ask everybody to turn on their webcams, but maybe one person per group, the spokesman for the group. And then I'd probably use breakout rooms a lot more. And I would use Moodle chats that are separate groups. Here's an interesting one. Some students particularly appreciate being able to unobtrusively contribute to the discussion via text chat. So you can just type in your comments. Creating a community of inquiry, COI, a community of inquiry. It's kind of building on the idea of a community of practice or a community of learners, but the idea of we're all trying to find answers, so the community of inquiry. Heightened sense of community. Form a larger cohort of students, so you got more voices, not just 12, you might have 30, 40. Remote students may be more likely to be professionals, right, practicing teachers, while on-campus students might benefit from the expertise of their external counterparts. So the full-time students benefiting from the practicing teachers, for example, input from the practicing teachers. So what about the challenges? Lack of PD, paucity of relevant PD. Paucity is lack. Lack of institutional recognition for the degree of effort involved. That's for sure. And cultures that do not encourage risk-taking. That's for sure. Students sometimes get disoriented. Really? Do you guys think, do you feel like you're not sure what screen to look at? Is that what you mean by disoriented? You know, I say go do something. Well, most of the time in this class, you're watching me demonstrate on the shared screen. So I think that's pretty clear. What ways do you mean what ways do you mean disoriented? Anybody have an example of being disoriented? Dizzy, falling down, falling out of your chair? Remote students' technical skills, familiarity with the communication platform, so that's why we practice with Adobe Connect. Yeah, distracted, sure. I know that you guys, some of you are talking to other people in your environment, so that could be a distraction. I have no way of seeing if you're looking at your phones or doing other things while you're looking forward. I have no way of knowing really what you're looking at. Yeah, just surfing around randomly. Could do, right? That boring teacher just keeps blah, blah, blah. I'll just turn down the audio and check my email or surf YouTube. Hopefully not. Sometimes teachers get overly focused on remote students. Also, it can be an imposition for the face-to-face students. Those students in the class could be disoriented or distracted by cameras, or if they're required to speak into a microphone. Trying to cater to students in both modes at the same time. As I say, I've done this about 4 times, and it's very difficult. It's the most challenging. Easier to get everybody, both remote and in the classroom, on the same platform. So they're looking at a webcam even though they're in the classroom. That's the easiest way to get everybody on the same page at the same level. So let's look at some examples. Tools and configurations. We talked about video conference systems such as Polycom or Cisco, Skype, Blackboard Collaborate, Adobe Connect. Oh, don't go anywhere. Virtual worlds like Second Life, chat rooms, and then they list some custom web tool applications such as Google Hangouts. I don't know Piazza or Etherpad. Talked about interactive whiteboards, point-to-point and multi-point, a little bit technical there. Problems with audio, student bandwidth. We talked about that when Cliff was in Beijing or up in the mainland somewhere. Bandwidth was a limiting factor and he got dropped a few times. And that can lead to teachers choosing low bandwidth tools such as text chat. I have run entire class sessions, 3 hours, only typing. No video, no voice, just everything typed. And it's pretty tiring. Students get tired of trying to focus and read. Yeah, the whole thing. I didn't talk at all. It was just done live chat. And the students get tired. That will kill people, yeah? Not only am I doing Okay. Can you guys hear me all right? Jessica, did I show you Turbo Squid last time? So there's the link on the Moodle course, Turbo Squid, a marketplace for 3D models. And you should see it on your screen now, 3D models for professionals. And if I search for lungs, for example, you get all these different models that people have made, from very realistic ones to cutaway views to some with skeletons as well. Let's take a look at this one. Generally, the more money you pay, the more you get. So this one comes with the upper body skeletal structure and the lungs and the trachea, and you can see some internal view there. So it's pretty amazing quality, and also this can be imported into Second Life, just like that big muscular anatomy that you've seen in Second Life on HKU Medicine Island. This can be imported and made to any size. It takes some practice and some experience to do so. The student that was helping me definitely went through a learning curve before he figured out the best options to make a good quality upload to Second Life and to not have too high of an impact, because you can only have 15,000 things on one island, and this might eat up 300 or 400 things to have this one model. So that's from Turbo Squid, and you might do some searching in there and you can find just about anything you can imagine. Here's a brain. Yep. Look like anybody you know. Yeah, cutaway view. Color labeled for the different parts of the brain. Yeah, frontal lobe, parietal, occipital, temporal, cerebellum. So you might look at that and think about ways you could use that in Second Life as a starting point for a learning object. Okay, is everybody back? And can you hear me okay? So if everybody who can hear me will let me know if you can hear me okay. You have no audio now? Oh no, that was before. Everybody's okay. Yeah, okay, okay, okay. And yes. All right, good. Alrighty, well, let's continue on. So you should see the shared screen here of the Moodle course. And one of the things I want to bring up to you is machinima. Machinima are videos made using a 3D virtual environment as the source, and then you can capture the video using screen capture tools such as Fraps or Jing. Camtasia does a very nice job of capturing a presentation, and obviously you can use your camera controls to do all kinds of amazing zoom shots, which are almost impossible to do in the real world. You know, from very far away, zooming up and then going through walls and things like that, and zooming in very tightly. You can do that using Second Life and capture it and make a movie. So here's I'll just show 1 minute or so of this virtual tour of the ILC. I used an avatar in the virtual world to create an educational learning object, basically a tour of the Innovative Learning Center in Second Life. So it looks like that, roughly. And this avatar is named Sophia. I'll just run it for maybe 30 seconds or so. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it. Can you hear it? No? Oh, well. That's okay. I'll just note the quality. Done using photographs. Yep, it's set at the Innovative Learning Center in Aberdeen. It's a Hong Kong Academy of Medicine. So that was just a quick demo of that, and you can play that on your own to check the quality. The audio narration the voice of Sophia is done by the same lady who works at the HKU in the education faculty that does the voice of the MTR. So when she says, you know, Tingman Kaugen Chaemon, or she talks about, please don't bring a metallic balloon into the MTR, that's the same voice as of this virtual tour, Jerry Chan. And there's another one I put up here. It's a 5-minute history of the human race. This is done by this Greek guy, and it's got a nice funny little subplot, and I'll just show it briefly to show you the quality and and what he's doing. So a quick overview of different histories, different parts of history, including the printing press. So you can see some simple animations built into Second Life there. The history of cinematography and filmmaking. And now the computer and the internet. So it's actually got a very nice soundtrack. It's too bad you guys can't hear it, but you can listen to it on your own. And then I put up a link to the Virtual World's Best Practice playlist from the recent conference, which was just concluded. All right, so for the remainder of the class, about 25 minutes or so, I'd ask you guys to step into the virtual world of Second Life. Now, go ahead and try it using this link here, Biochemistry. And if you have to close Adobe Connect, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and run both. And if Second Life doesn't work for you, just watch it in Adobe Connect. So you have 3 choices: Adobe Connect, Second Life, or run both. Depends on what you want to do. If you can run Second Life, I would do that. If you can't, just watch it in Adobe Connect. So we're going to go to that slurl of the biochemistry using a HUD. And I want everybody to follow the instructions and listen to me as I put it on. So perhaps you should try to watch Adobe Connect so you can see my viewpoint. But then you can try it yourself and use the rightmost login button, right? There's 3 login buttons. Log in at last location, don't want that. Don't want to log in the middle one. My favorite place is what you want is the one that says HKU Medicine Island, and it's the far right login button. It shows you a picture sometime from the past. There's the 2 me's, right? Mr. K and the VLab manager. Both look the same, but different outfits. So if you can run Second Life, go ahead and do it. But I would recommend you keep your Adobe Connect open and so you can see my viewpoint. But if you can run Second Life and you can hear my voice, then you'll be okay. Okay, so there's somebody already here, right, floating behind me. Vivina. So Vina, if you'll stop flying and come down, there you are. And behind you is the virtual biochemistry lab. So there's a big sign here. You should be able to see it. Click this sign to get an HKU VLab HUD. So Vina, can you step back a little bit? You're blocking the view for all of our other viewers. So click on the sign and it'll try to give you a HUD, and click on Keep. And it gives it to you. Notice it's called HKU VLab HUD. And then open up your inventory, which is the little suitcase button over here. And the easiest way to find it is type HUD. And there it is, VLab HUD. Hopefully this is the latest version. I think so. And you can double click it or right click it and say where. And now you'll see it appears in the upper right of your screen. That's typical for a HUD. It shows up there. Sometimes they put it on the top left. Resetting the exercise. Press the start button when you're ready to start. Okay, so we've got it on. We're going to step into, so if all of you here, Kevin and Vina and Karen, if you can click on that sign and keep the HUD and then find it in your inventory and double click it or right click and where. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of time and just type into chat in Second Life, or so you want to single click on it. You probably double clicked, and that's why you went through the sign there, Karen. You just want to single click on the sign. And once you have it on, you can step inside. Okay, so I'm going to step in. And over here on the left, you have a setup. So this entire room is set up with for biochemistry training. And there's 5 lab benches. So there's 5 lab setups here along the left side of each of these benches. And over here to the far left are different setups for different equipment. The centrifuge, PCR scanner, various equipment. But right here in front of us, this is the start sign. So if you want to try this, you can just watch me do it, or you can step around to one of the other benches. So if you want to try lab bench 2, you can do it there. Or if you